There is one thing that all of my favorite MMOs have in common. This guy. Look, I've dabbled in World of Warcraft over the years, but one feature that's been missing has always kept me away ultimately after like a month or so. The lack of controller support. Now look, I get it. It's a PC game. It's meant to be played with a keyboard and mouse, and that's the way that the general community seems to enjoy it, and that's great. But for me, nothing says a relaxing afternoon with an MMO like a couch, TV, and a controller just running around questing, farming, leveling. It's hard to relax that way with a keyboard and mouse, even with one of those lap setups, because your elbows are kind of hanging down. You're just like, ugh. But thanks to the incredibly talented community modding and adding add-ons for World of Warcraft, there are add-ons, plugins that can totally transform the way that World of Warcraft appears to you and is played. Is it playable? Is it fun? I've wanted to try this ever since I saw Balliol Gaming's video on trying to make World of Warcraft a more immersive action MMO experience with a controller, and I finally did. And if you believe some of the code that people are finding in the latest, I think, test servers update patch, real controller support from Blizzard is on its way. So there's never been a better time to see if it's a way that you can enjoy playing World of Warcraft than, like, right now. Official support is en route. Link in the description below for Balliol Gaming's original video. He's awesome. Definitely check him out, and he really explains how to set this up perfectly. So let's break this up into 4 different groups: gameplay, world interaction, menu navigation, and overall setup of the experience, which hopefully, if Blizzard's official support is coming, will no longer be a factor soon. Let's kick it right off with gameplay, because ultimately this is probably the most core part of the experience. If this sucks, why even bother with the rest? And this is by far the best aspect. At a glance, you might initially think your reaction might be, there's just far too many abilities, too many spells, and in truth, you're sort of right. If you want every buff, debuff, item, summon, teleport, and spell or ability available at your disposal, you're going to struggle to get that all on the hotbar. But realistically, the general flow of each fight is mostly like 5 or 6 abilities over and over again, with occasionally a utility thrown in. That's been my experience with my Warlock at 120, and certainly the lower level classes. It's just kind of how the game flows. You get those core abilities, your core rotation, which is most of your general fights, and then as fights get more difficult, more enemies engage, you start to expand your toolbox, your tool set. Now, that's not to say that with the way that the controller support is set up, you couldn't add more abilities than that. Honestly, the mapping system is incredibly robust, and it'll allow for a lot of modifiers, like holding down the left trigger, holding down the right trigger, holding down the left and right trigger, to essentially make your face buttons square, triangle, circle, X, or X, Y, B, A. Why can't I remember controller buttons? Yeah, I think with modifiers you can get a total of 32 different actions. That's a ton of actions and abilities if you really want to go all out and apply each one. And it's got cool ways that you can have like tiny little slivers of the ability showing around the frame to show if the ability's ready or not. They did a good job. And it's also flexible enough to set up however you want. For instance, I would rather have my D-pad directly reflect targeting of enemies and foes and myself than have to hold a trigger for that. Similar to how it works in Final Fantasy XIV if you've ever played that. So that's how I set it up. I have up on the D-pad set to nearest friend, down on the D-pad set to myself, and then left and right set to previous and next nearest enemy. But I mean, at its core, look, movement feels fluid and natural with the stick. It doesn't feel weird like some games where you map a controller to a WASD movement. Targeting feels fine. The most difficult aspect are when you're in tight crowds where there's lots of enemies and you're trying to select a specific one. But to be fair, that's tough with tab targeting anyway. That's where clicking comes into play, and I don't know, you're already in trouble there. Ability rotations don't feel stressed at all. I wasn't sure if it would feel natural hopping from button to button. I was hoping it was because of my experience with 14. But yeah, casting, melee, ranged attack, all feels normal. Placement abilities like Mage's Blizzard, they're going to be a little trickier than usual, but ultimately not too bad. But yeah, nothing's going to be as easy as the mouse just like, there. But again, for basic, normal rotational flows, you're fine. I will say, I have not been confident enough to try this in any dungeon runs or anything with other players at all. I'm kind of nervous about ruining somebody else's experience, and they're like, what is happening to this guy? He's spazzing out, like if I have some sort of issue. It would be something I'd be curious to try. Maybe I'll stream my first attempts with you guys on Twitch once we get some willing guinea pigs. I mean participants. Speaking of which, if you didn't realize, I do stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. Definitely come by and say hi. We play a lot of old MMOs, new MMOs, other kind of multiplayer games, just fun stuff. If you want to bring your topics, your questions, your thoughts on whether or not controllers belong in the MMO space, let's talk about it. Why am I doing this? I'm worried I'm gonna be attacked. As soon as I say controller on any PC game, I'm like, don't hit me. But like I said, ultimately the gameplay felt good. And this trend continues with world interaction. For lack of a better way to say it, there's a let's make a smart guess about whether or not you're gonna interact with something in the world or someone feature that works pretty well. You can map it to one of your face buttons that isn't an attack that you can do without a target. Essentially meaning that if you're not targeting something, you're not gonna just like fire off an arrow or something. I'd say that it works about a third of the time. There's a couple things where like I would have expected it to work and it didn't, but that's fine. For the rest of the time, you can quickly press either the right trigger in or double tap L1, LB, and your mouse appears on screen, which you can then move around with your right stick. And if you keep that focus on the center, which there are a lot of options to allow you to do that easily, you can kind of just like quick double tap, point your character center of the screen at whatever you're trying to target, and quick access that. There's also a feature I should mention that automatically adds quest items, so whenever you get a quest and you don't have to like cleanse an altar or something 10 times and you get the altar cleansing spray, that's quickly added to a hotbar of sorts, a wheel that you can quickly access with, I think it's L1, L2, A, and you get this wheel. It works well for most quests that come in where I have to do something like that. I haven't really had any issues with it. Overall, I will say this whole world interaction, it's not perfect, but it'll get you where you need to go. Yes, you would be faster with a keyboard and mouse being able to click the character you're talking about, the item. But ultimately, if you're on a couch and you're just trying to do it and like, oh, I gotta click that chest. Like, yeah, you can click the chest. It's not a big deal. But I will say that these positives in my mind sort of drain away a bit with menu navigation. I'm not saying it's terrible. For those of you that really support World of Warcraft with the controller and the whole setup, you might be like, dude, it's fine. It is fine. And honestly, there's probably a lot more configuring I can do to even get it better than what I have now. If you have any suggestions on how I can make my menu navigation experience with controller better, add-ons, configuration changes, anything, let me know. It is impressive for what it is. I mean, I can navigate bags and my character panel with a D-pad, which in itself is cool and crazy. I mean, it's nuts that you can do that. And I never have to pick up a keyboard and mouse. I can do it all with the controller. What the community has done here is amazing, but ultimately, this is where I'm most excited for some official support. It's not because what the community built is bad, it's not, it works. There's just stuff that I've grown used to doing with a keyboard and mouse that I don't really know how to do with a controller. Comparing gear, mousing over an objective on the map. It's all stuff you can do with a controller, you're capable of doing it, but unlike the gameplay, which it almost felt natural and like the game was designed around it, this feels more clunky and forced into a game that was originally designed for keyboard and mouse. Maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comments if you've got some ways to get around some of the problems I've had. I would love to make this part of the experience better because it does feel like one of those things right now where every time I have to open up my bag or equip some new gear or go into my character pane, I have to do like a couple extra little weird steps and I'm sort of annoyed. I'm like, I wish I was at my desk for this. It'll get you where you need to go. That's the important thing. But I did find myself missing my keyboard and mouse more often during these moments than any times during like gameplay or world interaction. Leading us to finally setup. This is a tough one. The problem is that it's a custom built add-on, so you have to install each add-on individually, supporting WoW Mapper, setting them up to your liking. Is it terrible for anybody who's had to set up a few add-ons before? No. But is it as amazing as a game that natively supports all these features? Of course not. I've also run into some issues with the mods that I've chosen occasionally crashing. It also might be my own configuration. It's hard to say, but that's sort of the point. I don't know if it's something I'm doing or something with the mods and the add-ons. I don't know, maybe. And while certain add-ons are great about saving profiles or configuration, exporting to other characters, other profiles, other accounts, other machines, others are not. The Guild Wars 2 UI setup, I have minimal changes, but I have to make those changes every time that I do this. And I always kind of go, and I realize I can't remember which features I unchecked and which I kept checked. And this is for every character. Every character has different configurations for add-ons, and I get why they did that. Ultimately, your hunter, you may want to design your UI very differently from, I don't know, I want to say Warlock, but that's like the closest thing. It's another pet. What? I suck. Let's go with Rogue. Yeah, you might design it differently than Rogue. But point being, you have to tweak it every time you go to your next character. And if you're somebody like me who hops around on characters a lot, that is a bit of a pain. Until you get set up, and then it's fine. But that's nothing compared to the controller mod itself though, which, while amazing, cannot export configurations. It requires me to set up where I'm positioning the buttons on screen, what those buttons map to every time. Now I get for like abilities that are unique to class, like sure, that makes sense. But I wish I could just copy over that I'm always gonna have the D-pad be the targeting the same kind of similar ways. I might set up the Hearthstone to be mapped in the same way each time. Little things like that. And every time I go to a new character, I have to reset the pixel location of those buttons, and it is annoying. Ugh. So ultimately, this experience, would I recommend it? Let's get this first thing out of the way. Like I said before, I've not tried this with group content. I'd be too nervous that, you know, I'd ruin somebody else's time by screwing something up, my mods would crash and I'd run off screen or something, or I wouldn't be able to use an item or ability on time because I didn't realize we got it in a critical moment. But as has been said before, for general questing, leveling, soloing abilities, it's amazing. And I'm not saying it can't be used for multiplayer activities. I think it totally could be used for something like a dungeon. I've just been nervous to try. Maybe if I get more time with it and I get really comfortable and I figure out whatever's causing it to crash like every hour or so, then I'll totally go for it. And let's be clear, I'm not against using a controller for group content on any kind of principle that like I can't react fast enough on a controller. I've played my entire 14 and 11 experiences on controller. I totally support it as a valuable and viable method to play the game. I just think it could use a little official support from Blizzard to really bring it to fruition in WoW. And I really hope we do see that. And hopefully these little hints in the code base are suggesting that. That would be so cool. Do you think it's coming to consoles? Different question, another day. But overall, yeah, definitely try it out. If you're someone who enjoys relaxing back on a couch with a controller playing games, I think this is totally something you can enjoy, especially if you're really into RPGs or especially World of Warcraft. If you are a fan of World of Warcraft, but maybe you're trying to figure out a different way to experience it right now, like Bellular Gaming was suggesting, these mods can make it a more immersive, even almost action MMO-like experience, which is a lot of fun for just general leveling, which is a little slow right now. And by slow, I mean not that interesting, not slow. Let me know if it's something you're curious about. I'll link the videos that I referenced in the description below. If you think this would bring more players back to the game, if it's what's holding you back from playing, or if you think controllers should just stay out of MMOs in general, let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it. Otherwise, stay leveling and have a good one. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace. Jeremy adores. Dude, he's the best. Waffles, you're the best. You're the absolute bestest, Flute. Oh, you love the head scooches. You love the head scooches. The head scooches are the best. And the cheeky scooches.